Seeing Ghost live at the O2 Arena in London changed me. Genuinely, it did, in a couple of ways which I will explain over the course of this video. Now, I'm pretty new to the world of Ghost. I've heard of them before, of course. I know they're a massively successful band. I'd heard their music many, many years ago, and I thought, it's alright. It's a little bit boring, it's a little bit doomy, not sure that I'm that into it. But recently I checked out new songs of theirs in Satanized. It's kind of jaunty. And Lacrima. It's got wings! I've got reactions for those on this channel, and I fucking loved them. Now, this is something I've always thought. You need to revisit bands over the years, now and then, because your taste might change, or their sound might change, or a combination of the two. And you may get into a band in future that you're not really feeling right now. That is exactly what's happened with Ghost, and I'm delighted. I now have this new treasure that I can explore because there's a whole bunch of albums I've not heard, which I can dive into and enjoy, which I will be doing on this channel. Do subscribe if you want to see my delving into the back history of Ghost and coming back up to the modern day, because I'm excited to do that. But I'd never seen them live, ever. And that has been quite a game changer. As much as I enjoyed those singles on record, the live experience was really quite special. Now, I'll try and detail here the whole evening and then summarize why I've come away from that gig a little different to how I went in. So it was at the O2 Arena in London. There's no support bands, which is unusual. It's just the main band, Ghost, on stage at 8:30. So what that means is the entire crowd is there kind of early. Normally you have people drifting in earlier than 8:30 to see support bands. So at the O2 Arena, even though it's a huge venue, it became a bit of a mob at times with the number of people queuing at the same time to get in. There's no phones allowed on this tour, so I don't have any footage from myself of that. I wasn't allowed to have my phone, wasn't allowed to take any footage. So any footage that I slice in here will be from the official Ghost channel, just to demonstrate some things as I talk about them, but no phones. Which I understand because it means no one's distracted, everyone's paying attention to the show in front of them. It's a more connected experience. That's great. But it does mean you can't just take any little video clip mementos, which I like to do, so that later on I can be like relive my exact view of that thing, and then the whole rest of the evening unfurls in my mind. So that is what it is. It's kind of unfortunate, but I get it. Fine. No phones. I was just glued in, trying to remember every detail I could to describe them here as a way of documenting this experience. Now, before the actual gig, I was lucky enough to visit this kind of VIP museum of Ghost artifacts. So again, not having understood all of the lore, I got to see a bit of a peek into it. There was all kinds of costume pieces from like the ghouls and ghoulettes and things that were playing on stage in previous incarnations. Also previous costumes for the main Papa, that is the vocalist character, were all laid out in these sort of coffin-like glass rectangles, quite realistic looking. We half expected they might just sit up at some point. It was a little unnerving. There was also this mannequin of some dead lady as well. I don't know who that was. At some point when I delve back into the history of Ghost and watch like their music videos, that'll make sense. I'm like, oh, I assume. Dotted around the room, there were some photos of moments from the Ghost past. There were also drawers you could pull out and see intricate little memorabilia from tours they've had in the past. There were set pieces from music videos and things. That was very cool. I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed seeing the difference between some of the costumes. Some of them looked very cheap, maybe from the early days of Ghost, and others very intricate. One of them had these gloves with gold fingertips on the leather gloves. It was fucking badass. Very cool. From there, I was heading in to find our seats in the main arena, and the sheer number of people who had Ghost-style makeup on, or not even strictly like the band, but just kind of spookiness in general. There was a lot of nuns, men and women, dressed as nuns, enjoying themselves, and I love that aspect of it. And it wasn't like everyone did it, and therefore you're like, I feel like I'm not part of the cult. It was a sort of maybe 20% of the crowd that was doing that. And the audience themselves, demographic-wise, is one of the broadest I have ever seen at a concert. Every age group was represented, all various kind of fashion styles and all sorts. It really was a melting pot example of the entire world all enjoying this one thing, which on the surface of it, before you get into it, you think like, well, this is going to be just like spooky folks. But actually, there was families and all sorts. It was, I mean, I was there as well. I'm not a very spooky dude. But everyone was welcome. Every single person that I talked to at any point during that evening was lovely. It's one of the friendliest fan bases I have met thus far. So that was a wonderful thing as well, setting up this evening of Ghost, whatever that's going to be. Now, when you get into the arena, there's a huge curtain up covering the entire stage. There's some large holes in it, making it look kind of spooky, and it almost looks sort of velvet as well. Very in keeping with the Ghost styles. And the first song started before that dropped, so you get an excitement sense. You can hear the music, the band starting, and then they drop it at some point during the first song. The second song was Lacrima, which I'm a big fan of, and that absolutely fucking ripped. Live, with the volume turned up to fucking 12, was awesome. Those riffs were so huge live with the banging drums. Drums were fantastic, by the way. I think they're using triggers because they had the excellent digital 80s style drum samples coming out of what looked like an acoustic kit. And I was scrutinizing on the footage on the big screen. I don't think it's an electric kit. I think those are drum skins. I think it's triggered depending on the song and the sound that would have come out. So the sound represented as closely as it needed to the main song that you would know and expect. So that was a nice touch. Great solid drumming throughout the evening by that particular ghoul, as I understand they're called. But yeah, Lacrima banged, and actually already at that point, we're 2 songs in, we've established the lead vocalist, by the name of Tobias, is incredible. His voice was perfect. Perfect. There's a slight nasaliness to it, as is his style, and that was still represented, but it had fullness to it. It was a brilliant performance vocally for every single song. There was one song in the middle of the set where it had slightly more kind of harsh vocals to it. Kind of the only song with them, really, as far as I could tell. There's another song called The Rats, and he sort of had a rasp on that one. But otherwise, it was largely just beautiful, clean vocals, really well performed. Had excellent stage presence, as you would hope for such a kind of grand character sort of thing, but also quite fun, jaunty, dancing around, twirling here and there. It was delicate, it was whimsical, and yet also spooky and dark. Especially at one moment during the set where he goes to the back of the stage and the guitarists are getting the attention of the crowd. There's some great crowd interactions, and he's putting on the big, new Papa V costume. I don't know if it's Papa V or Papa 5, by the way. Let me know in the comments, because I'm new to this world. But I'm going to call him Papa V. Sounds cool. And he ended up putting on this huge robe with the big papal hat and the rest, and then starts levitating. He's on a plinth that raises, but it looks like he's flying, which is kind of cool. Now it's a kind of a dark, menacing moment, so he's just at the back of the stage, just glaring at you all as he's singing in this menacing way. So it's a cool combination of darkness, but also light and humorous moments as well when he's chatting to the crowd. I loved the range of kind of tones within the evening. The guitarists were fucking phenomenal. I could tell that already from the songs that I'd heard, those recent singles. There's guitar solos in there that they performed well, and they certainly did. They were brilliant. And also, their antics on stage were fun and captivating to watch too. They really added a lot to the whole performance. There was, I think, 8 or 9 band members. That's a lot. But needed because of the harmonies that are so important to this band's songs. Those multi-part harmonies were taken care of largely, I think, by the kind of keyboard players at the back, but also at times other instrumentalists as well. But cool staging, because all of them, that many people, it's a large stage, there's plenty of space for them, and they would kind of walk around and do different pieces as well throughout the gig. The lighting was super cool. They had this huge upside-down ghost cross represented in lights hanging over the stage, which sometimes would move up and down with it. I'm sure that looked fucking epic from the back of the arena, this huge cross in the band underneath there. So lighting was very cool. There was also some staging developments throughout the night. You had the big sheet that fell. You had the lighting for the most part. There was the pyro sort of air, smoke, guns, I guess we'd call them. Couple moments of fire pyro. There's also at some point the back of the stage converted to a arched stained glass represented cathedral thing. Was pretty cool, but they were done in LEDs. The arches themselves were inflatable, real, which I also love. It reminded me of the music video for Lacrima, where it's not CGI, there's physical props. So it gives it a very, human and real sort of sense, like you're in a bit of a different space. But the LED screens allowed for some animations, depending on the song, which is very cool. At some point, though, during the set, those arches collapse, and then there's a whole new scene that unfurls. Loved the way that developed. It gave the the performance a bit of a journey. Reminded me a little bit of Bring Me the Horizons live shows recently, where they have this entire epic staging with LEDs and video animations and things, which I think adds a lot. But there's a balance to be had, and it's one of my big, that's changed my mind sort of mentalities, which I'll get to later on. But staging was super cool. The whole thing was visually captivating and sonically brilliant as well. An important factor of this that I think is interesting from my perspective, because I don't know their songs. Their songwriting is so good that you don't have to know the songs for them to land live. That was really impressive. I enjoyed every song. Maybe there's a couple that I thought were like, they're fine. They're maybe a little bit more on the prog kind of rock end of things, which if you're not that familiar with them, they might not land as solidly. But there were some songs I'd never heard before. One about, and I'm going by memory because I don't have my phone, something about the future. The future land. You know what? I can look it up. The future is a foreign land. That's the one. Just found it on Spotify. I'd never heard that one before, but it's super catchy. And that was one of my favorite songs of the night. That's great songwriting. That's great songwriting. That it's a memorable enough moment in a series of something like 20 odd songs. I went, that one, that stood out. That was really good. That's really impressive. And I just had no idea that Ghost really had that. From whatever it was, the first couple of songs I heard a decade or plus ago, I didn't think they were that interesting. Maybe I just caught them at the wrong era for my own taste at that time. But clearly there's a range of songs that they have over their past. And that makes for a bit of a journey throughout the set, depending on what they choose to play and when. And the encore that they had was banger after banger after banger. One of them was, I think, Mary on a Cross, something about that. The people are going to be screaming at me in the comments here, but that was very good. That seems to be a very popular song, went down really well. But the three encore songs I thought were fantastic. Let me look them up. Someone on the internet will have written this down. Dance Macabre and Square Hammer. And it was Mary on a Cross. Those songs fucked. They were so good. Really, really enjoyed those. I really was impressed with the entire performance. It was so fun and so well put together. So it's kind of changed me in a couple of ways here. One, I think there is an optimal balance between focusing on the musical performance and making that as good as possible, but also the visual element. I think not enough bands pay enough attention to trying to do things that are visually captivating in a considered way that doesn't distract from the music, but also isn't like a why bother, it's just some LED screens with some visualizers. Now I know that there's a cost to some of that stuff, right? Like Ghost they've got a good budget to make all kinds of things happen. Same with Bring Me the Horizon. They've got a big budget, but so do Slipknot. And I think they could do more to have an interesting visual staging journey that goes through the evening. And actually, the band that I think is technically the best on the planet right now is Sleep Token. And I think they could do more on their staging to make it an interesting journey. They've got some great light considerations. They had some cool moments that have standouts within their set recently at the O2 Arena. And they do that, I think, so that you focus more on the music itself, which I get. And their music is fantastic. But Ghost managed to have every song have a different sort of staging or interesting moment to it. But they set that up as a thing at the start of the song, but it didn't distract. It wasn't so lively and insane that the rest of the song was still about the song. But then as we go to the next song, there is a completely different something about it that made it interesting and captivating visually as well as sonically. And I think more bands should be doing that. I value that more as something that I'm going to look out for and shout out when I see that happens, because that's ideal. We're there for the music. The reason people sell tickets is because of the music first and foremost. If the music sucks, no one's going. Doesn't matter how cool your visual is. If the music sucks, no one's listening. So yes, the music is important, but it's a show. It's entertainment as well. And I think Ghost did a fantastic job of balancing the show element, but also focusing that once the show is established for a particular song, cool, now focus on the music until the end of that song. That was so brilliant. And I've not seen that done as well as a balance as Ghost did. And it's kind of changed my mind about some of the live performances of other bands I've seen at that level and thinking they could do better. The other thing that's changed my perspective a bit is just the fact that I've known about this band's existence, but kind of dismissed it as like, I don't know, it's kind of, I think it's just doomy metal, it's not for me. without really delving into it. But what I do, which I think is important, I do talk about on my channel a lot, is I revisit bands over the years. Never completely write something off, because your taste might change or they might change. So it's a great example that having revisited them here in 2025, now I'm in the right place, perhaps mind-wise, to be open to it and check it out. Or it's the right singles that really connected with me, and now I'm ready. I can see the doorway opening into Ghost fandom because of that. And I'm delighted because now I have all of this content by Ghost to go and delve into and enjoy. But really, the bigger takeaway here is that I think all of us as human beings can fall into this trap where if you don't like something immediately, but you see that there's lots and lots of people that do, you kind of, the temptation is to go, well, I'm not, they must be, that's normies, man. It's not for me. It's populist music. Maybe they'll like it, whatever it is. Same thing happens in TV shows. Oh, I'm hearing this big show called Game of Thrones. Everyone's watching it, so I don't know if I'm going to get it. Like, because that's just what, I don't watch what everyone watches. I'm special, right? But eventually you go check it out. You're like, oh, this is fucking amazing. It might be that something that is liked by so many people might be because it's really good. Not just because it's kind of like accessible for a wide demographic. Maybe there's also greatness in there as well. So both interests are served at the same time. That, for me, is exactly what Ghost has. I kind of early on went, not for me, I don't think. And then the more popular they got, I was like, oh yeah, because I don't know, maybe I'm into more like niche metal bits and pieces and rock. Even though I also like Nickelback, it's not niche at all. But I was just like, there's a big bunch of people that really like that, but it's not for me. But here I am. Going, actually, it is for me. It's probably been for me all the time. I didn't have the right gateway song into it or the right open mindset to go in and try here and there. So in future, I'm going to try and notice when I'm doing that for something, some kind of piece of music or band that is very popular. I'm going like, it's not for me. Do you know what? Bit more open mind. Try again every year or so and see. Because I might have a delightful experience like I did at the O2 Arena in London watching Ghost live for the first time, which was pure joy, honestly. I loved the whole thing. And I would have missed out on that if I hadn't checked in with that band again this year and found my way in. So that's a wonderful takeaway, which hopefully has changed my mindset from henceforth. Another couple of interesting things from the evening. There were some notable people I noticed in the audience there. In particular, I mean, the bassist from Tool was there. Justin Chancellor was there in the crowd checking out Ghost. That was fucking cool. But also, I saw Andy Copping there from Download Festival. So I do wonder if he's kind of scoping them out to see, are they ready for a main stage headline spot? They just sold out their arena tour of the UK with the Skeletor that I was just at there. Did a phenomenal job. Great staging. Great live sound. They look ready to me. I wonder if we might see Ghost headlining Download in the next year or two. We'll see. Anyway, that was my experience of seeing Ghost live for the first time. Phenomenal. Really, really wonderful show. Looking forward to seeing them again at some point when I can, and diving into their older records now that I'm ready, I think. So do make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you haven't already. There is more Ghost content in the future here, and I'm really excited about it. A changed man. A member of the clergy, perhaps. All right, it's early. I'm a fan. I would say I'm a fan. Let's see where we go from here. Thank you for watching this. Hopefully you enjoyed this. And hopefully I'll see you in another one of these videos very soon.